The small suburban diner flickered under dim fluorescent lights, with only a few customers scattered across worn vinyl booths. Anna, 22, a struggling waitress, had just received her meager paycheck. In her pocket were a few crumpled bills and one last meal she'd saved for herself after her shift. A frail homeless man shuffled through the door, trembling with hunger and exhaustion. Anna quietly placed her bowl of noodles in front of him, smiling gently. "I already ate." Anna Martinez had learned early that life wasn't fair, but kindness was still a choice. At 22, she was completely alone in the world. Her mother had died when she was 16, and her alcoholic father had disappeared soon after, leaving Anna to fend for herself. Working double shifts at Mickey's Diner on the outskirts of town, Anna barely made enough to cover rent on her tiny studio apartment. The job paid minimum wage plus whatever tips she could scrape together from the diner's modest clientele of truck drivers, shift workers, and the occasional lost traveler. Her dream was simple but seemed impossible. She wanted to go to nursing school and help heal people. Every month she put aside a few dollars toward tuition, but progress was painfully slow. At this rate, it would take her years to save enough. The diner itself was a relic from the 1960s. Cracked red leather booths, a checkerboard floor that had seen better decades, and a jukebox that only played 3 songs. The owner, Mickey, was a gruff man who tolerated Anna because she was reliable, but he paid her as little as possible and complained constantly about overhead costs. That Tuesday evening had been particularly rough. Anna had worked a 12-hour shift, dealt with difficult customers, and earned only $18 in tips. When Mickey finally handed her the weekly paycheck, Anna's heart sank. It was even smaller than usual due to some inventory adjustments he'd made. After counting her money twice, Anna realized she had just enough to cover rent, leaving her with exactly $5 for food for the rest of the week. She went to the diner's small kitchen and prepared herself a simple meal from the ingredients she was allowed to use: a bowl of chicken noodle soup and a small dinner roll. It wasn't much, but it would keep her from going to bed hungry. As Anna sat in the back booth, about to eat her dinner, the front door opened with a tired jingle. A homeless man stepped inside. Elderly, with wild gray hair and a thick beard, wearing layers of tattered clothing that hadn't been washed in weeks. The few remaining customers immediately looked away or moved to different seats. Mickey emerged from behind the counter with his usual scowl. "We don't serve panhandlers," he announced loudly. "Get out before I call the cops." The old man didn't argue or cause trouble. He just stood there for a moment, swaying slightly with exhaustion, his hollow eyes scanning the warm restaurant he wasn't welcome in. Anna watched this scene unfold and felt something twist in her chest. She looked down at her soup, then back at the frail man who was already turning toward the door. "Wait," Anna called out, standing up. "Sir, please sit here." She gestured to the booth across from where she'd been sitting. Mickey shot her a warning look, but Anna ignored him. The homeless man hesitated, confusion in his tired eyes. "Miss, I don't have any money." "That's okay," Anna said gently, sliding her bowl of soup and roll across the table. "Please, eat this." The old man stared at the food in disbelief. "But what about you?" "You look hungry too." Anna forced a bright smile. "I already ate earlier. I'm fine." It was a complete lie, and her empty stomach proved it. But seeing the man's eyes fill with tears of gratitude made her feel warmer than any meal could have. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice cracking with emotion. "God bless you, child." As Anna watched him eat with the careful reverence of someone who hadn't had a hot meal in days, she didn't know that this simple act of kindness was about to change everything. The next evening, Anna was wiping down tables during the quiet hour before closing when something extraordinary happened. A sleek black Mercedes pulled up outside the diner, the kind of car that had never been seen in this neighborhood. Through the large windows, Anna watched a well-dressed man in his early 30s step out, looking around with the careful attention of someone searching for something specific. When he entered the diner, everything about him screamed wealth and success. The tailored suit, the expensive watch, the confident posture of someone accustomed to being the most important person in any room. But his confidence cracked the moment he saw the homeless man sitting in the corner booth. The old man was back, nursing a cup of coffee that Anna had quietly served him despite Mickey's disapproving glares. He looked cleaner than the day before. Anna had slipped him some soap and directed him to the gas station restroom down the street. The wealthy young man stood frozen for a long moment, staring at the homeless man as if seeing a ghost. Then in a voice thick with emotion, he whispered, "Dad, is that really you?" The entire diner went silent. Even Mickey stopped counting the register. The homeless man looked up slowly, and Anna saw recognition dawn in his weathered features. "Lucas?" he said, his voice barely audible. "My son?" Lucas crossed the diner in 3 quick strides and knelt beside the booth, tears streaming down his face. "Dad, we thought you were dead. After Mom's funeral, you just disappeared. I've been looking for you for 12 years. Anna watched this reunion unfold with growing amazement. The homeless man she'd fed was named Robert, and apparently he was the father of Lucas Morrison, a name Anna recognized from news articles about young tech billionaires. "I couldn't handle the grief," Robert explained, his voice shaking. "After your mother died, I lost everything that mattered. I gave up the business, gave up the house, gave up on life. I've been living on the streets ever since, too ashamed to contact you." Lucas held his father's hands tightly. "Dad, you've been homeless for 12 years. How did you survive?" Robert glanced at Anna, who was pretending to clean a table while listening to every word. "Kind strangers. People who saw me as human when others looked away. Yesterday, this young lady gave me her own dinner when she barely had food for herself." Lucas turned to Anna with an expression of profound gratitude. "You fed my father?" Anna felt her cheeks flush. "It wasn't anything special." "He was hungry. It was everything," Lucas said firmly. "If you hadn't helped him, he might have collapsed on the street. You saved his life." Word of the reunion spread quickly through social media and local news. By the next day, reporters were calling the diner, wanting to interview the waitress with the golden heart, who had reunited a billionaire with his lost father. The attention was overwhelming and not entirely positive. Some people accused Anna of orchestrating the whole thing for publicity. Online comments ranged from supportive to cynical. "She probably knew who he was all along. Just another gold digger looking for her big break. Why didn't she help him find shelter instead of just giving him food?" The negative comments hurt more than Anna had expected. She'd genuinely just been trying to help someone in need, but now people were questioning her motives. Mickey, meanwhile, was thrilled by the publicity and began advertising the miracle meal at inflated prices, much to Anna's embarrassment. The situation became more complicated when Lucas kept returning to the diner, trying to find ways to thank Anna properly. He offered her money, which she refused. He offered to pay for her nursing school, which made her uncomfortable. "I didn't do it for a reward," Anna insisted during one of their conversations. "Your father was hungry, and I had food. It's that simple." "That's exactly why I want to help you," Lucas replied. "Because you don't expect anything in return." But the media attention was affecting Anna's life in difficult ways. Reporters showed up at her apartment. Strangers recognized her at the grocery store. Some people treated her like a celebrity, while others remained skeptical of her motives. More troubling were the other homeless people who started coming to the diner, hoping for similar generosity. Anna wanted to help everyone, but she could barely afford to feed herself. The emotional weight of seeing so much need while being unable to address it all was crushing. One evening, after a particularly difficult day of dealing with reporters and cynical comments online, Anna found herself crying in the diner's storage room. She began to wonder if her simple act of kindness had somehow made everything more complicated. That's when Robert found her. "Child," he said gently, "I heard what people are saying about you. I'm sorry my situation has brought you trouble." Anna wiped her eyes. "It's not your fault. I never expected all this attention. I just wanted to help." Robert sat down beside her on a crate of supplies. "Let me tell you something about kindness, Anna. When you do good in this world, it creates ripples. Some people will try to turn those ripples into waves of doubt and suspicion. But the people who matter, the people whose hearts are open, they see the truth." He paused, looking at her with the wisdom of someone who had lost everything and found it again. "My son sees the truth. I see the truth. And someday, you'll see that this moment wasn't a complication. It was destiny." The situation reached a breaking point during a formal dinner that Lucas had arranged at one of the city's most exclusive restaurants. He'd invited Anna to meet some of his business associates, hoping to show his appreciation publicly and put the rumors to rest. Anna felt completely out of place in the elegant dining room, wearing the only dress she owned while surrounded by people in designer clothing. The conversation was polite but strained, with several of Lucas's colleagues clearly skeptical about the simple waitress who had captured their friend's attention. "So, Anna," said Margaret Hartwell, a sharp-eyed woman who served on several charity boards, "you must be thrilled about all this attention. It's quite a story." There was something in her tone that made Anna's stomach tighten. "I never wanted attention. I just helped someone who needed food." "Of course," Margaret replied with a thin smile, "though it is remarkable how perfectly everything worked out for you." The implication was clear, and Anna felt heat rise in her cheeks. Before she could respond, Lucas's business partner James joined the subtle attack. "You have to admit, the timing was incredible. A struggling waitress helps a homeless man who just happens to be the father of a billionaire? It reads like a fairy tale." "Because it is a fairy tale," Anna said quietly, but her voice carried across the table. "But not the kind you think." The conversation stopped as everyone turned to look at her. Anna stood up, her hands trembling, but her voice growing stronger. "You want to know the truth? I work 3 jobs and still can't afford basic health care. I eat ramen noodles for dinner most nights because that's all I can afford. When I gave Mr. Robert my meal, I went to bed hungry that night and the next night too." The table fell silent. "I didn't know who he was," Anna continued. "I didn't know who his son was. I saw a hungry old man and I had food. That's the entire story. If that's too simple for you to believe, then maybe the problem isn't with my story. Maybe it's with your inability to imagine that people can still be good without expecting something in return." Margaret looked uncomfortable, but she wasn't done. "Nevertheless, you must admit that Lucas's generosity toward you has been substantial." "What generosity?" Anna asked, genuinely confused. Lucas shifted uncomfortably. "Anna, we need to talk." That's when the truth came out. Unbeknownst to Anna, Lucas had been quietly paying her rent for the past month. He'd also set up a scholarship fund in her name at the local nursing school and had been working behind the scenes to ensure she wouldn't have to worry about money while pursuing her education. Anna stared at him in shock. "You did what?" "I wanted to help," Lucas said desperately. "You saved my father's life. You gave him hope when he had none. I couldn't just do nothing." "But I didn't ask for any of that," Anna replied, her voice rising. "I didn't want any of that. Don't you understand? You've made me exactly what they think I am. Someone who helped your father for personal gain." The revelation created chaos. Some people at the table nodded knowingly, as if their suspicions had been confirmed. Others looked ashamed of their earlier skepticism. But the real shock came when Robert, who had been invited to the dinner but had arrived late, appeared in the doorway, having heard the entire conversation. "Enough," he said, his voice carrying an authority that surprised everyone who saw him as just a homeless man. "All of you, be quiet and listen." Robert walked to the center of the room, and Anna noticed something different about him. He stood straighter, spoke more clearly, and commanded attention in a way that suggested he hadn't always been powerless. "I need to tell you all something about who I really am," Robert began. "Before I lost my way, before I became homeless, I wasn't just any businessman. I was Robert Morrison, founder of Morrison Technologies." Gasps echoed around the room. Morrison Technologies had been sold for nearly $1 billion 15 years ago, shortly before its founder mysteriously disappeared. "That company became the foundation for my son's current empire," Robert continued. "But when my wife died, I couldn't bear to continue. I sold everything, gave most of the money to charity, and walked away from the life that reminded me of what I'd lost." He turned to face Anna directly. "For 12 years I lived on the streets. I encountered thousands of people. Some ignored me, some pitied me, some feared me. But only a handful treated me like a human being, and of those, only one gave up her own dinner so I wouldn't go hungry." Robert's voice grew stronger. "This young woman didn't help me because she thought I was worth billions. She helped me when she thought I was worth nothing. She didn't help me because she wanted something in return. She helped me because she saw suffering and chose to ease it. The room was completely silent now. "So let me be very clear," Robert continued, looking around the table at each skeptical face. "Anna didn't find a lucky opportunity. She created a miracle through simple human kindness. And anyone who questions her motives has never been truly desperate, truly alone, or truly in need of grace." He walked over to Anna, who was fighting back tears, and gently took her hands.